করেছিলাম কি দিয়ে, ভয়েস চ্যাটার দিয়ে না তার আগে তোমার মনে আছে ইনিশিয়ালি কি কভার করেছিলাম? ফার্স্ট টু ক্লাস চ্যাটারিং দিয়ে শুরু করছি কি জানি। হ্যাঁ ফয়সাল, ইউ রিমেম্বার?
একটু দেখতেছি shipbroking chartering, time chartering,
ship voyage chartering, time chartering, tomorrow GenCon charter party, GenTime charter party we have discussed. To sample of charter party. We have discussed about lay time, what is lay time and lay time calculation, isn't it? Numerous dispatch we have covered so far. Voice calculation বোধ হয় আমি দেখিনি। Today, if time permits, I'll just show you the voice calculation কিভাবে করে, just to give an idea. On Saturday, after your exam, the Shaheen will give you some practical classes on the board. Yes, he will be there on Saturday. So stay with him. It will be good to see a practical exercise done, and of course the midterm exam. So তোমাদের midterm exam তো পিছিয়ে গেছে, I understand, তাই না? শাহিন তোমাদেরকে বলেছে না যে কবে সে নিবে স্যাটারডেতে একটা ক্লাস?
হালিমা ম্যাডাম বলেছে, শাহিন স্যারের সাথে কথা হয়নি স্যার।
এটা মনে করাই দিও, শাহিনকে একটু বলে রাখে। আমি বলে রাখছি ওকে, ব্যস্ত থাকে তো ভুলে না যায়। I thought that be a good thing to do physically on the board. তারপরে maybe time permits, we'll go through a specimen voice calculation. তার এইভাবে জুমে করা সম্ভব হয় না ক্যালকুলেশন গুলি, but if you see the layout and an example, that will give you a clear picture. Okay, so let me so you are prepared for your midterm exam, I understand, isn't it?
Sir, not yet, sir.
Not yet. Let me first go with the sale and purchase contract. It is in your syllabus. Then you'll go with the maritime lien and see what it is all about. Okay, can you see the slide? Yeah.
Sir, ji sir.
Okay.
দেখতে পাচ্ছি স্যার।
Now this is a Norwegian sale form, which is very common in Europe. Then we have a Nippon sale form 1999. This is popular in the Asia subcontinent. 1993 যেটা এসছে, তারপরে আরেকটা এসছে 2012, ওটা আমি একটু দেখাবো। The changes, not much of changes, but changes in certain places has been made to update that sale form. Basically, the clauses are same. So if you want to buy and sell ships, people normally go on the Norwegian sale form or Nippon sale form. These are two popular accepted world over as a standard form. Of course, you can always do some kind of a change in between. So there are 7-page, 16 clauses about the sale contract. Okay. So you can also, as I said, you can have changes if you want to defer to maintain the standard clauses. You can always modify it mutually or with negotiation. Okay, so or remove this. Same thing like in charter party. Charter party the standard format আছে, or মধ্যে থেকে if you would like to accept it, if you want to sort of negotiate or modify some of the clauses mutually, you can always do it. It's not a problem. But in overall, it is a form that normally accepted by most of the buyer and seller of the ships. Okay. If you look at that preamble at the top of the form are spaces, form to দেখাবো পরে date and seller. এটা just like a bill of lading form. The special form is there. You have to just fill up the form, and in the form, all the terms of the contract for sale or purchase is there. Hello. হ্যাঁ নওশাদ, ক্লাস নিচ্ছি, বলো জলদি। হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ যাবো। আচ্ছা আসো। ওকে ওকে নওশাদ, দেখা হবে ইনশাল্লাহ। Okay, so whatever is the information required in the form, you can always, there's a standard things, date, and seller buyers details of the ship, including the name, classification society, year bill, shipyard, flag, registration number, etc. So all this information has to be in the contract. Normal হয়ে থাকে, nothing. Purchase price, যেটা ঠিক হবে, whatever the purchase, আর কিছু ডিপোজিট রাখতে হয় once you complete the contract and agree to go ahead with the sale or purchase. So a 10% deposit to be paid by the purchaser, when it must be paid and where. So that will be also be addressed in the form. টাকাটা কবে পাঠাবো, কখন পাঠাবো, এবং কখন এটা টাকাটা দিতে হবে, within 3 days or within 7 days, that we'll see what it says. So there has to be a 10% deposit initially once you sign the contract. So after you survey and everything, you make sure that the ship they have declared is exactly as per the specification that you will, one has to verify that by sending a surveyor there and ensure that it is as per the declaration made by the seller or buyer. Okay. Purchase money, bank details must be paid on delivery. Okay. যখন এটা একটা তো হচ্ছে যে ডিপোজিট একটা দিতে হয় within 3 banking days, and the rest when you go and survey the vessel, and happy to see that yes, exactly the ship they have declared, committed, has got everything in it, including your space, stores, whatever is there in the list. So purchase money you have to pay it on delivery, but not later than 3 banking days, again standardized conditions, after the buyer has received the notice of readiness, state that the vessel is stating that vessel is ready for delivery. So once the seller gives the buyer a notice of readiness that yes, my ship is ready in all respect, and you get the survey done, and off you take the delivery. So once you take the delivery, you have to pay the money, but in no way later than 3 banking days. Okay, so important is that you must give a notice of readiness, otherwise it will not progress any further and remain in a stalemate situation. If you see that the inspection, the buyer can inspect the vessel's class records, and 2 options are provided depending on whether this has already been taken place. It also authorizes a physical inspection of the ship stating where and when the vessel will be available for inspection, that the sailor has to give you the notification, and accordingly you have to satisfy that the ship is okay, and restrict the scope of inspection. So physical inspection of the ship, stating where and when the vessel will be available for inspection, and this is scope of inspection, no opening up, still things. Anyway, you cannot just, as it is, you have to survey the ship. No opening up, still things like seller will not tell the buyer. This is the way in real life, available for inspection and restrict the scope of the inspection. There will be no restriction given to that, because once you want to buy, no opening up, so you have to negotiate that with them, that if you have to satisfy, you have to see everything that you need to fulfill your satisfaction. But negotiation or mitigation, then if they sort of do not allow to open the hatch or open any compartment if you want to inspect, then of course there will be some problem. So how to mitigate that problem? This is a used device by merchant ship brokers. I've taken that onshore just for you to read out. Norwegian's cell form is currently the most widely used internationally recognized agreement for sale and purchase of second-hand tonnage. At least the Western Hemisphere is wide use. Feedback from the industry indicated that cell form could benefit from an updated, and the Norwegian Shipbroker Association therefore said about the challenges of revision agreement. The result is the introduction of cell form 2012. The certain changes has come in 2012 cell form, but not much of not at a greater extent. We'll have a look on the cell form 2012. The preamble has been subject to some minor amendments, but the revision has, we're talking about 2012 cell form. So if you look at it, there's some minor amendments, but the revision was no wording to reflect the common practice where a buyer or seller provides a performance guarantee in respect of his nominated buying or selling company. Okay. Revision has no wording to reflect the common practice where a buyer and seller provides a performance guarantee in respect of his nominated buying and selling company. So performance guarantee tara rakhte China because it's a second-hand ship, but you can send your surveyor while you are inspecting. You can run the engines and everything, but you cannot just take it for a trial or something. Okay, so but you must send who can make out about the ship. If you are going to run the ship, operate the ship, buy a second-hand ship, then of course you got to satisfy in all respect, because it's not little money, it's a capital money is involved in buying, and you are the buyer most probably taking loan from the bank, so it is going to be ultimately liability if it is not, everything is not okay. In light of the requirements for a valid guarantee under English law, such standard wording setting out the extent of the guarantee and calling for the signature of the people. So you can slide time choto kore ashi. কপি করা তো ওই জন্য সমস্যা হচ্ছে। Okay, let me just go ahead gradually. Okay. So just see that there's guarantee সম্বন্ধে ওইখানে কিছু লেখা নেই, but again you can always insist that no, you want to guarantee that aspect of nominated buyer and selling company in light of requirements for a valid guarantee under English law, such standard wording setting out the extent of the guarantee and calling for a signature of the guarantor may have been beneficial by limiting disputes concerning the validity of guarantees. So as you see, you set the wordings as you feel good. You can obtain advice from the broker who are dealing with this kind of business. They are also a good guide to advise you that what best you can do and what kind of guarantee you can have, so that you are happy with the ship. Maybe have been beneficial by limiting the disputes kind of the validity of guarantee. Limiting the disputes, yes. So if you signature box for any guarantee can be, of course, always be added in that. Okay. So seller will now be required. Then the most striking a number of additional definition have been included in the sale form. The most striking being the definition of class. So in the new form, which is 2012. So definition has been revised. Okay. So what is class means? So class as a class notation other than the class of society itself. So class notation is has to be there. So what that means that you have to that has been revised in the new form, so that there is no dispute arising about the class of the current society. Seller will now be required to insert the class notation into the memorandum of agreement. So whatever notation is there, you mention that. A practice which is currently rare and which sellers usually avoid in order to slide গুলো তো ঠিক মতো হচ্ছে না।
ফন্ট সাইজ গুলো একটু ছোট করে দিলে
I should have done it before. Just select the cover করেনি। You are right. So let me সামনে করি। দেখা যাবে? বেশি ছোট হয়ে গেছে।
স্যার উপরে স্লাইড শো আছে, ওখানে দিলে হয়তো দেখা যাবে স্যার।
স্লাইড শোতেই তো দিয়েছি আমি। উপরে স্লাইড শো দিলে
স্যার এখন এডিট মোডে আছে আর কি স্যার।
স্ক্রিন স্লাইড শো দিলে দেখা যাচ্ছে।
আমি এখানে এই করে দিই। আনারি মানুষ তো ল্যাপটপে।
ওই যে স্যার, হ্যাঁ এখন আপনার মানে মাউস পয়েন্টারের উপরে স্লাইড শো আছে স্যার।
হ্যাঁ দেখছি আমি।
24 বা 28 দিলে হবে।
আর এই কি বলে অ্যাপলের এটা ইজ নট
ম্যাক স্যার।
ম্যাক, হ্যাঁ ইটস নট ইউজার ফ্রেন্ডলি, এটা খুব প্রবলেম হয়। এটা দেখা যাচ্ছে না?
জি স্যার দেখা যাচ্ছে।
সো এখানে বলছে ডেফিনিশন, ক্লাসের ডেফিনিশনটা চেঞ্জ করা হয়েছে। নোটেশন ক্লাস সোসাইটির নাম না বলে ক্লাস নোটেশনটা শুধু রাখা হয়েছে, which is in the contract form. Seller will now be required to insert the class notation into the memorandum agreement, a practice which is currently rare, which sellers usually avoid in order to prevent possible misdescriptions claims. It is notable that the definition in writing has not been linked to the new notice provision and clause. So writing has not been linked to the new notice of, they have not connected the 1993 contract and 12 contract. Only the revision has been made. You don't need that. In fact, once the revision is made, and this is a almost a final, you can expect. আমি আগেরটাকে একটু এ করে নিয়ে আসি, just that is better, isn't it?
স্যার
So in a preamble টা গেল তোমার, you have seen the definition part of it. Let's see, this is also, let me ঝামেলা হয়ে যাচ্ছে। Never mind the big one. In order to take account of the commercial practice, the parties are now free to insert the relevant percentage of the purchase price, which will be paid by way of deposit. However, the traditional 10% remains as the default level of the deposit if no other figure is inserted by the parties. Okay, you can insert the figure, or you can go through the bill of sale as well if you prefer that. An interesting amendments is a new reference to the deposit holder, which is a move away from the assumption that the deposit always be held by the seller nominated bank. The deposit holders can be any third party, but if the broker, lawyer, etc., be it the broker or lawyer, etc. So sometimes what happens that some of the money is kept in a escrow account, so it's directly not paid to the seller. Once everything is satisfied, then you can keep it with the broker or lawyers, or even a account that I understand is there in the international market is called escrow account. That remains there. Only that can be drawn once you give a clearance. Otherwise, they cannot draw the money. Unless there is any dispute, of course, you take delivery of the vessel and the money will automatically be released by the bank. Just like in the bill of lading, like the letter of credit money when you trading in the international market. Okay, so one of the most significant alteration, clause 2, is the revised wording setting of the trigger payment of deposit by the buyer. Sale Form 1993 provides that the deposit be paid within a certain number of banking days from the date of the memorandum of understanding. So that provision is there. The number of banking days allowed for payment is open to the parties to agree. So the revised sale form, the revised sale form 2012 now provides that deposit will be payable within 3 banking days from signature and exchange of the original document. Okay, so it's now within 3 banking days you have to pay the money. So if you are dealing with such a sale and purchase of vessel. I'll just give you the full copy of that form. আমি ওখান থেকে কেটে কেটে এটাকে tried to make it a PowerPoint presentation, but it was not done well. Nevertheless, আমি একটা copy তোমাদেরকে পাঠাবো। Okay. So this is I have underlined that in the same slide. That number of banking days allowed for payment is open to the parties to agree. But the revised platform, the 1993 had no specific date of payment, but it was open to agree mutually. But the new one has put some specific time for payment of the money. That is within 3 banking days. Okay. And will be payable 3 banking days from the signature and exchange of original MOA and receipt of the confirmation in writing. So that is going to be there. Now the most significant alteration clause 3, this is all we have gone through. The time for payment under the clause is clear, but it is possible that this wording may give rise to difficulties of interpretation. The usual position is that absent indication to the contrary, the broker recap is evidence of a binding agreement having been reached. So you can see the complication may arise, but if you have a clear-cut contract understanding, then of course there will be no sort of a problem, and the broker is involved in between who can negotiate, help their buyers or the clients. Provided all terms have been agreed, it is possible that this new wording will lead to arguments that the agreement is not binding until signature and exchange of MOA. Though this was presumably not the intention of the drafters. Some comments that new wording will lead to argument why I don't know that the agreement is not binding until signature. So that is obviously, unless you sign, no agreement is a binding. It is not an official document anyway. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There is also added express obligation on the parties to provide the deposit holders with all documentation required to open an account. So account তো এমনি খোলা যায় না, তুমি যে একটা অ্যাকাউন্ট খুলে পয়সাটা জমা দেবে, so for that the buyer has to give you all the documents, and if the documents are not proper or in the right format, and that will delay payment, and that's what for that the buyers will not be responsible. So seller has the responsibility to provide all the documents that is required. The failure by one of the parties in providing this document may have been considerable effect, as the deposit will not be payable until the deposit holder confirms that the account has been opened. Okay, so the buyer will ensure that yes, there has been account has been opened, and only then the money will be transferred to that account of the seller. There is no express provision dealing with the consequence of such a failure. So all these are interpretation and what you can the analysis of the contract, but that all when you are involved, you have to remove all this confusion, disputes, and make it straightforward, a document that will have no sort of a confusion or create any sort of a dispute that will delay the whole process. Okay, so payment of the purchase price, the clause 3 of the document. The wording for the trigger for payment of the purchase price has also been altered in the new form. Buyers are now obliged to pay the purchase price within 3 banking days of the date, and the notice of readiness is given in accordance with the clause 5. So the buyer will give you NOR, you will have the inspection done. You have signed MOU, and then the question of payment comes. Okay. The additional requirement in the sale form 993 for the vessel to be in every respect physically ready for delivery has been removed in the new form. See, it's a very important clause that vessel to be ready in all respect has been removed. It is to the advantage of to the seller, but again, if you are involved as a buyer, then you got to make sure that you have everything ready. Normally, what the seller will definitely keep the vessel ready for delivery, because otherwise the seller will be not getting the money, because the buyer will have to send surveyors and inspectors or maybe class surveyors to verify the ship. So it's not that easy that seller will try to sort of play around, because if he has to sell the ship, he has to give those kind of cooperation and understanding with the buyer. Clause 5A, time and place of delivery and notices has been amended so as to include a date range for delivery by the inclusion of a date before which NOR may not be provided, as well as cancelling date. Exactly like in the charter party, maybe they will have a sort of a delivery exactly not a span of days, maybe 2nd March to 5th March or something, they were done. So the ship, you can go in between that day for the inspection and satisfy that you are getting the ship that you are looking for. So এখানে বলছে range for delivery or the inclusion of a date before which NOR has been amended, and NOR may not be provided, as well as a cancelling date before which NOR may not be provided, as well as a cancelling date সেটাও থাকবে না. Seller's obligation to keep buyers informed of the vessel's itinerary now requires them to give notice of readiness when they intend to tender NOR. Give notice when they intend to tender NOR. So NOR দেওয়ার আগে তাকে একটা জানাতে হবে যে, excuse me, hello, হ্যাঁ সাদা, ছুটি কোথা থেকে নিছে? নিচে থেকে? একটু একে বলে দিয়েন না, কি বলে, সৌরভকে এসে আমার ব্যাগটা নিয়ে দিতে। Okay, so you can see this is the comparison between the old and the new one. If you read it a couple of times, it will be clear that what it's saying, and what are the changes that has been brought in. So NOR is still to be provided when the vessel is at the place of delivery and physically ready for delivery in accordance with the agreement. Okay. So has been in every respect physically ready for delivery has been removed. Okay. So it's a bit of a confusion. Buyers are now obliged to pay the purchase price within 3 banking days of the date that notice of readiness is given in accordance with the clause 5. The additional requirements in the sale form and the 3 for the vessel to be in every respect it has been removed. Okay, that we have gone through that. That is a sort of a disadvantage point for the buyer. So this is a delivery. I've gone through that. Divers inspection and dry docking clause 6. So this alternative for dry docking and inspection has been retained. So the মনে করে যে জাহাজটাকে ড্রাই ডকে নিতে হবে অথবা ড্রাইভার দিয়ে ড্রাই ডকিং যদি না নিয়ে যদি ড্রাইভার দিয়ে জাহাজটাকে সার্ভে করা যায় the bottom part of it, then that can be addressed in the contract on delivery. এখানে বলছে although the different alternatives for dry docking and inspection have been retained, the order of alternative in the standard form has been altered in order to reflect the industry practice. What is that? Is abandoned so as to provide the buyers must exercise their option to require a diver's inspection at least 9 days prior to the intended delivery date. So that's a point to note that if you are engaging a diver for the inspection, maybe to save the cost, or if you can agree with the buyer that the ship has to be dry docked before delivery, that also can be done. It all depends on how you conclude the agreement between the buyer and the seller. Okay. It is always negotiable. This seeks to ensure proper notice for sellers to make the requirement arrangements. Buyers should take note of the time limit to ensure they are not deprived of the right to call for a diver's inspection. That's fair enough. So if you in case you want to engage a diver, then of course you have to do it 9 days in advance prior delivery. There may be some why they have kept 9 days, I don't know, but this is how the contract is. It is also minded all these options can be negotiated and for final delivery of the ship. So clause 6 has been amended where the buyers must exercise the option to require a diver's inspection at least 9 days prior to the intended delivery. They seek to ensure proper notice for seller to make the requirement arrangements. So buyer or seller also has some responsibility. So they will give enough notice to the buyer. Buyer should take note of the time limit to ensure they are not deprived of their right to call for a diver's inspection. So again, it is a both way responsibility. It is a good form. Looks like they have taken the interest for both the buyer and seller. But seller has the option of satisfying his requirement either by inspection or survey before the delivery agreed upon. Where a diver's inspection required and the condition at the port of delivery are unsuitable, Sale Form 2012 adds a provision confirming that the cancelling date shall be extended by the additional time required for the positioning and subsequent reparation of the vessel. So this is one of the major. আমি এই স্লাইডটা কেন নিয়ে এসেছি এই নোটটা এটা পড়লে দুটাই সামনে চলে আসতেছে, the 1993 and the updated one. When you're comparing both the things, what is happening. So but again এখানে বলছে যে ড্রাইভার যদি ইন্সপেকশনে যেখানে জাহাজটা আছে করতে না পারে if that is not a suitable place, then of course the cancelling date যেটা থাকে যে if you don't finally conclude the deal with a certain date agreed, like LACAN or lay days or something, then of course you can this time can be extended by additional time so that they can place the vessel to a place where they can have an inspection with the diver. Okay. So that's it. That is okay. 6A3 provides, A2 provides that if class do not require certain defects, do not require certain defects to be rectified before the next dry docking survey, the seller are entitled to deliver still you can see what it says. The sellers are entitled to deliver the vessel with those defects against the deduction from the purchase price of the estimated direct cost. Okay, তার মানে জিনিসটা কি দাঁড়ালো, before the next defects to be rectified, যদি কোনো ডিফেক্ট থাকে এবং সেটা যদি ড্রাই ডকে গিয়ে রেকটিফাই করতে হয়, তাহলে till the next dry docking the sellers can deliver the vessel as it is, but then the buyer of course can deduct that cost of the repairs cost as well as dry docking cost from the agreed amount of purchase. Okay. That's what it's saying. So you have the option that you can take delivery if you're in a hurry, and also it provided that the ship can sail with those defects. If it is something to defects regarding safety and all, nobody will dare to take that ship as it is. But in case of a ship for demolition also, that is a different story. Okay. But if you are looking for a ship that the buyer wants to operate, then of course this is a serious thing to agree upon or think about. আমার ডিফেক্ট থাকলেও আমি বললাম ঠিক আছে, আমি রিপেয়ার কস্ট এবং ড্রাইভিং কস্ট আমি মাইনাস করে বাকিটা দিলাম. The seller might as well agree. For him it's not a problem, but buyer has to make sure that that is not going to hinder its operation or going back to where the ship has to go for repairs or engaging the ship in the trade. Buyers will then have no further right in respect of any defects and or repairs. So if you do that, you lose all your rights of any further claim or further repair to be done on the seller's account. So it's up to the buyer if he is going to take that kind of a contract where the ship will be delivered with defects, with deduction of the certain deduction of the certain money for the cost of those survey and repair and the repair cost and the dry docking cost. তারপরে বলছে although this reflects incorporation of a frequent amendment, sellers should consider this wording carefully, as the direct cost incurred may exceed the cost of labor and materials and include various additional expenses. So obviously, this is a serious decision on behalf of the buyer. And as it says that the contract, that once you take the ship with the defects, in exchange of certain deduction of the cost, the price of the ship, later you cannot claim anything from the seller. So it should be the buyer should be careful when going into such kind of deal. Okay. This clause also sets out a mechanism for calculating the deductions from the purchase price. So also you have the guidelines how this deduction to be made from the cost of the ship, from the price of the ship in such cases. Repair work are to be obtained by the parties from two reputable independent shipyards in the vicinity of the port of delivery within 2 banking days from the imposition of the condition recommendation of class, unless the parties agree otherwise. And if you do that, if you want to get repairs, otherwise you have got two reputable independent surveyor থেকে shipyard থেকে cost নিয়ে যখন adjust করতে হবে তখন how they will what amount of money they will deduct for the repairs and dry docking. For that, the contract says that you have to take 2 quotations in 2 banking days so that the deal can be finalized. If one of the parties fail to obtain such a quote, then the quote of the other party will be the sole basis of the estimate. So that is one disadvantage. So of course, both the party will think what is best for them. But if the buyer fails to do that, the seller will give you the option and that will final. Okay. So